This is the College Football Connection Podcast with Alvin, Reid, Bradford, Bruns, and Marty Jenkins on 101 ESPN.
Times for a number of SEC fan bases lacking direction at the moment. Will it be a bit of a scary week number 10 slate across college football as well? We shall see, but nonetheless, happy Halloween, everybody. Bradford, Bruns, and Alvin Reid with you in studio here on October the 31st. 101 ESPN, that YouTube channel, and 101ESPN.com. Alvin, I wouldn't necessarily call it a costume, but you are outfitted as the man heading to homecoming shortly to be able to turn things in that right direction.
Well, you know,
in Lawrence.
if we're going to get 6, we better beat Oklahoma State for number 5 on
Isn't
Saturday.
that the truth?
Yeah, after that embarrassment last week, program took a big step backwards. I think K-State beat us because they were K-State, and they beat us. They thumped us. And I didn't go over last week because I was going this weekend, and I'm glad I didn't go because that was just. Yeah.
Suffice it to say, a rough weekend all the way around for the local squad.
I watched Missouri. I was because we were the big noon game, which is 11 a.m. But I watched Missouri, and well, you know, the quarterback gets hurt, but I would have probably kicked the field goal there anyway and taken.
You think?
I think I'm taking my points right then. But there were some other goings on. You know, once again, Missouri just takes too many stupid penalties. And it changes field position.
Here's the line, and you cross it repeatedly.
Right. You know, in a game like that, you look back, and that's the kind of stuff that if it didn't cost you points, it cost you field position.
Yeah.
And it all adds up in the end.
Couple of things. Matt Zoller's in relief, and it will be, no question about it, the Matt Zoller show moving forward through the duration of 2025. Your defense was exceptional yet again. Missouri on the bye. Its second such occasion this weekend. So we will dig more into those Tigers next weekend on the CFC. Regardless, though, speaking of the team that took down Missouri 1 weekend ago, we will begin in this instance with Vanderbilt as Alvin in the SEC. Not exactly that loaded slate, okay? If you had looked at a number of these contests before the season began, you would have said on the paper, we like this series of contests. But here's a big one, because you've got the Commodores now at number 9. We could throw all of this hasn't happened since 1940s, those narratives at you ad nauseum. But the fact of the matter is that the Commodores at 7-1, now traveling to Austin on this occasion. Texas still at number 20. Okay, favored in this spot by 3.5, over-under figure of 46.5 for a contest that is kicking off early at 11 a.m. once again. Arch Manning still in the protocol. We have no idea as to whether he will be the guy at signal caller for the Longhorns this coming weekend, and some in the fan base would say, that's all right. Matthew Caldwell, we saw what you did down the stretch. You spearheaded that overtime triumph over Mississippi State. 17-point comeback in the fourth quarter. That's neither here nor there. Vanderbilt has the chance, and it's a tangible one at that, Alvin, to move to 8-1, maybe even creep into the 7-8 spot. What's your feel for this?
Well, my feel is that 3.5 is too much in Texas's way.
Same.
You know, you watch Texas play, and they're down big to Mississippi State. And, you know, a punt return. Now, just think about it. If you don't get a 75-yard punt return, the guy gets tackled. That means you have to score a touchdown in the last, 2.5 minutes of the game.
Those Bulldogs are feisty this year.
Right, yeah, and you're starting from deep in your own territory. Not to say that Arch doesn't lead them right down there and score another touchdown, but all those points weren't offensive.
Correct.
Okay? And you just look at Texas, and they're always in these games. And, you know, you caught Oklahoma, I think, like I say, with their quarterback coming back and maybe not being really 100% or wasn't 100%. And they struggled with Kentucky. Florida beat them. I mean, so why are we looking at Texas like Texas is all that? And we just saw Vanderbilt beat a tough Missouri team in a tough football game with a quarterback, Zollers, who came in and played pretty well. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't like you know, as I've told some people, I said, like, you know what? I think that game would have ended up 17-10, even if Missouri's quarterback didn't get hurt.
I totally agree.
I said, like, there was something just about that. Like, I think that game followed the same pattern it would have.
Old school physical football game. You had predicted as much during the week. You said, hey, Missouri, especially on the defensive end, compared to an LSU from the week prior, this is going to be a smash mouth brand. Yeah. It lived up to the billing.
Absolutely. And so I like Vanderbilt. I'm going to take my 3.5 points. I would say that, well, first of all, I know that Vanderbilt could win this football game. But if you're going to give me 3.5 points, then I have to go with Vanderbilt in that one. If you're coming from behind to beat Mississippi State, granted on the road, so you're just going to house Vanderbilt suddenly? I don't see it. So maybe what I'm saying is Texas is not as good as we think they are. Now, they've proven that 5 times over already. But why are we still saying, like, I just don't think Texas is good? Like, just come to the definitive conclusion, Texas ain't all that. I'm taking Vandy. I'm taking 3.5. I think we're also going to come in on the under, on a 46.5 on that one, too.
Still hanging on to that hope, that shred of hope for the burnt orange. I'm with you, Alvin. I don't see it, and especially on the offensive end. For how many different weeks are we going to stand or sit here and say, okay, just wait a little while longer. It's going to come together. Arch Manning admittedly played his best game of the season last week prior to exiting with injury. But still, if I'm hanging my hat on anything, it has to be that D for the Longhorns, because as much of a challenge as Vanderbilt did indeed face last weekend from Mizzou, it was stout. You've got a similar confrontation against the uber-physical Texas defense, particularly from a run-stopping standpoint. For all of the warts, for all of the bumps and bruises endured by the program this year, keep this in mind, 2.41 yards average per carry against that Texas run defense, okay? And when you're talking about a linebacker-edge duo, okay, the tandem that the Longhorns possess, Hill Jr. and Simmons, eerily reminiscent of Trotter and Zion Young for the Tigers, right? So I think that the Commodores for the second consecutive week will indeed have quite a few issues as far as being able to move the ball down the field. You take a page out of Corey Batoon's playbook, frankly, as far as hemming Pavia in. Mizzou was able to do exactly that. I think Texas can do somewhat of the same thing there.
I think you could go over Texas's head, though. I think they have a better chance of making big plays. I think their receivers are, I don't want to say better, but I think they match up pretty well with Texas's defensive secondary.
That's fair.
And Missouri's front is so stout that, 7 drops and waiting for a guy to come open. I don't think that was in Vanderbilt's playbook last week.
That's a good point.
So I think that if they can make some big plays, not a lot, but just kind of stretch the defense. And that's what I think. I think they would have much more success with that against Texas than they would have or did against Missouri last week.
Frankly, as well, Texas, that UT offense has been so stagnant for that matter that you don't feel as if Vanderbilt is going to be in a position early in the first quarter and early in the first half trying to play from behind, right? Trying to play catch-up.
Especially if they don't turn the ball over.
And that is precisely why I am targeting that number of 46.5 and saying we're coming in on the under here. We're coming in with Vandy. Yes, thank you very much, plus 3.5. And we know that so much the concentration there, so much of the focus has been placed, and rightfully so, to a great extent, on Pavia and the offensive heroics, right? The one-man show that we have seen on countless occasions so far this season. But it is more than past time, I think, Alvin, to be able to give just due to the defensive unit for Steve Gregory. Okay, after that performance versus MU, another stellar outing for 60 hard minutes, as we've said. 24th now in scoring defense, and how about 18th in run D? And if there is one thing, really, that added wrinkle for the Doors in 2025, this team is generating pressure. It's got 21 sacks. It has forced 11 turnovers. So in a nip and tuck affair, I'm liking Vandy to edge this one out. This one may not even get into the 40s. I really believe that.
I believe you. Now, question on this. What can we call this? Manning Incorporated step in and get across to Steve Sarkisian and, young Manning. You're not going to play this week. We got too much invested in you for you to get knocked again. And now you got 2 concussions, in a very short period of time. I'm leaning toward that he ends up not playing. If for no other reason than I think wiser heads, will say, Arch, come on, man. Texas, how many losses we got already? We got 2. Chances are we're going to get a third. What? It's
inevitable.
It's probably so. If if he put it this way, if he doesn't play, I wouldn't be surprised at all. And I think that's because the whole family would say, like, Vandy, Saturday, this season, coming off a concussion.
And respectfully, this isn't even akin to a Missouri-esque situation because you're not turning to a true freshman in the room. You're turning to a Caldwell who not only experienced a good amount of success just last weekend, he transferred in from Troy. He has the prior reps. He has the experience. So to get by for a game until the next Titanic tussle in the SEC, I see it going in that direction as well. I really do.
Yeah, okay. I'm just, nobody wants to say it, but I'd be surprised. Because he ain't got nothing to prove with guts. He's a gutsy guy. A gutsy quarterback family. Let's not get 2 concussions in 2 weeks now.
Speaking of a bit of a suspicious situation at QB as well, things haven't been all lollipops, rainbows, and sunshine in Norman, believe it or not, at that spot for the Sooners as Oklahoma, ranked at present, Alvin, number 18, traveling to Knoxville, traveling on a Saturday night, 6:30 p.m., Neyland Stadium, Tennessee. Both of these teams, I'm just going to say it straight up, full stop. This is a CFP elimination game.
Yeah.
If you get to that third loss, whoever it is, doesn't matter the side, for all intents and purposes, you are eliminated. But John Mateer, give him all the credit in the world for the moxie, the toughness. We knew 17 days removed from a surgery on a bone in his throwing hand. He came back, wasn't particularly good, a huge reason as to why Texas did prevail in the latest installment of the Red River rivalry. Followed that up, didn't have to do a whole lot against South Carolina, and then last weekend, once again, you saw some glimpses, you saw some flashes, but what happened? OU falling by 8 thanks to that second half rally, this time around by Ole Miss.
Yeah.
This is a deadly atmosphere. And by the same token, you feel as if Oklahoma, if ever it had a shot of really getting back into that high gear, kicking it back into gear offensively, it's going to happen against this Volunteers defense. Because Alvin, for crying out loud, despite the end result there, despite beating Kentucky in the previous game, you gave up 34 points and nearly 500 yards to Kentucky. So the question here is, can Aguilar and company once again outscore the problems of which you have countless, so many defensively?
I hear you, and I think they can. All right, it's a home game. Now, this one moved. We say we're talking 2.5, it went up to 3.5, and it's almost like, oh, boy.
True.
Oh, man, that all of a sudden, that kind of changed things. As Tennessee, that's as we can describe it, that hook, that 0.5, that's another scoring drive. That
shifted for me.
That's a complete scoring drive. But I think that Tennessee, who has come close in some of these games, I think they pull it off this time. And that's not taking anything from Oklahoma. It's just that Oklahoma is the number 18th ranked team in the country, and I think that's about where they should be right now. I know Oklahoma fans don't want to hear that.
I agree.
But at the same time, I think in this game, I think Tennessee prevails. I think they do cover the 3.5, which means they could be winning by 4, and Oklahoma could have the ball and have a chance to win the game at the end. That very well could come down to it. I think it'll be a one-possession game. I don't think anybody's getting blown out by any chance, but I do think Tennessee covers the 3.5.
What are you feeling along the lines of the over-under 55.5? That one is a little dubious for me.
That's a little dubious for me, too. I tell you what, I'm kind of afraid because going through it, man, I am just under crazy on, this week.
It's been there.
But at the same time, there's a couple of them where I said, like, I really want to play the under on this one too at 55.5, but I'm going to scratch on this one. I'm not going to go with a score in this one because Oklahoma, I think, could win the game.
Oh, sure.
All right. But I think there's a greater chance that Tennessee could take them out. And, not an embarrassing score. But,
with authority, though.
Yeah, like 28-14 or something like that. So that's why I'm like, I just don't get a feel for how the game flow is going to go. So that's why I'm going to leave that. I'm going to leave that one alone. I lean toward the under, but I'm going to leave that one alone.
And if it does unfold in that particular way, more of a rout, if you will, it's going to be because of Aguilar. No doubt about it. Almost 400 yards through the air again against the Wildcats, 3 more tutties. And over the last couple of weeks, you have seen more in the way of chinks in the armor from the OU defense. A surprising number, really, of missed tackles. Now, under Venables, that is always going to be the most sterling unit, okay? Even despite the package deal of Mateer and Arbuckle. Down the stretch this season, if Oklahoma really is to get through it pretty much unscathed, it's going to be about that defense. By the same token, I look at this fact. Here's another nugget for you, Alvin, on the College Football Connection on 101 ESPN YouTube channel and 101ESPN.com. Tennessee has yet to go through a game in which it has permitted fewer than 24 points this season against any FBS opponent.
Yep.
To me, that actually has me feeling somewhat confident. I'm not saying it's going to be the utmost shootout, but 55.5, I think these two programs race past that number, get into the low 60s, but because I simply do not, at the end of the evening, have any inkling, any ounce of trust in the Vols defense, and because that number has shifted to Tennessee minus 3.5, Oklahoma can indeed keep it within a field goal. Give me Oklahoma plus 3.5, not necessarily to win outright, but at least to cover.
Okay, all right, all right. I think we're on the same lane.
Okay.
But we just, like I said, that last possession, maybe that's the one we're talking about.
Just an extra twist, maybe.
There's an extra twist. Extra twist.
Turns, twists, all of those particular things could be on the table as well if you're talking about Lincoln, Nebraska, not with respect to the head coach. We'll get to that in a second here, but as far as the incoming opponent, that would be none other than number 23 USC. Alvin, saddled with the pair of losses this season, that first defeat to Illinois just continues to look worse and worse in retrospect. Nonetheless, favored here, that number has moved a little bit, minus 4.5 going into that Memorial Stadium in Nebraska. 59.5 is your over-under here. The Trojans, we understand, as far as average yardage per game, number one in the country. Mayava has been sensational. You have the dual threats now at wide receiver with Lemon and the return of Lane out wide too. Nebraska, I don't get the sense, Alvin, in spite of the development from a day plus ago. Matt Rule making the rounds. Matt Rule netting the 2-year extension through, in theory, 2032. Nebraska has lost just 2 games this season. There's still a lot out there on the table as this team looks to make its way back to consecutive bowls for the first time since 2016. And yet I still feel as if there's more meat on the bone there. I don't necessarily think that this news, even though it was essential, it was necessary. You have openings galore, power conference openings galore to lock him in. But did you get the sense a couple of days ago when this news was revealed that it was received, that it was embraced, it was absorbed with any sort of the fanfare that you would have seen even 5 to 7 years ago in Lincoln?
No, not at all. And part of it, I think, is because, all right, he got a contract extension and I guess some type of raise, but you're talking about, well, now he would be here till 36. Well, I think the fan base is not worried about 2036.
Okay.
They're kind of worried about next year. And, like, not that he would leave now, but let's say Nebraska keeps getting better and the next Penn State comes open or the next Florida comes open. I still think he would leave. I think he wants to get Nebraska to a point where they really are contenders for the Big Ten. But I think if another job called him, I think he would go. So that's, I think that's why there wasn't. It isn't like the fan base is like, I don't know if this is the guy. I don't know if Matt Rule is the guy. I think it's more of a case that he still could leave.
Yeah, and this is more a question of the bigger picture variety too. But have a lot of those fans in Husker Nation also perhaps begrudgingly arrived at the realization that maybe at this point in time, in this climate, in the Big Ten, is this as high as you ascend for Nebraska in the here and now? That could be a doubt.
Well, I think the way they were cheering for that team to beat Northwestern, like it seemed like a huge deal. Like
7-point victory.
Yeah, like y'all barely beat Northwestern, right?
My.
Right. And so I do think that the fan base there realizes, and they've seen it, in Lincoln in person, that, and it took them probably 20 years to realize this, that the reason that we're losing these games is because these other teams are better than us. We're not that. We want to be that again someday, maybe, but we're not that.
The name right now doesn't get it done.
Right.
Alone.
Exactly. And I think they've just come to that realization that, no, we are 6th at best in the Big Ten. That's technically where we're trying to make sure we're at. Because I don't know what you do with Indiana now because they're looking at Indiana, but they're probably saying like, you know, how did Indiana get better than us? Like considerably better than us. I don't know, but they're at least number 6, don't you think?
Mm-hmm.
Ohio State, Michigan, Indiana,
if not lower.
Penn State. Still, I mean, you know, and who am I missing? Oh, Oregon. Yeah.
Quite frankly, you could make the argument, and this is not prisoner of the moment stuff, for Washington yet. I'm not kidding.
But yeah.
In the ballpark.
In the ballpark. Yes. Got it. And with all that being said,
I took it in a different direction. Tell me what you feel for this weekend.
And all that being said, I think Nebraska's going to cover against USC.
Oh.
I think the contract extension will be a good thing as far as taking it out on the field. Now, I just made all of that pontification there, talking about, you know, they're not this and they're not that. So maybe USC, all right, can they take it on the road? Can they play that Michigan game in Lincoln, Nebraska? Now, if you show me you can do that, you'll cover. But I don't think you'll show me that you can do that. I like Nebraska. Plus, I'm getting 4.5. You know, once again, come on, you know. It'll be like who'd they lose to a couple weeks ago? You know, played a pretty good game, end up losing at the end. I forget.
USC or Nebraska, that is.
No, Nebraska.
Yeah, because you're talking about a team that has not exactly had a plethora of signature victories.
Yeah, and it was
so far
supposed to be
season.
their the big coming out win was supposed to, and they got beat. I can't remember who it was, though. Was it Michigan? I forgot. It's like a couple of 2-3 weeks ago. Short-minded. But anyway, remember that was supposed to be their huge game. We're on the map. And they got beat.
Well, not only did you lose to Michigan, but a couple of weeks ago, you absolutely came out and had a complete clunker versus Minnesota.
Yes,
another team that is arguably in that same tier as you right now in this very conference. Right. And you didn't exactly wow me either when you're talking about, again, defeating the vaunted Northwestern program by 7 points.
And Northwestern ripping and running up and down the field on you. Now, they couldn't stop Nebraska's running game, particularly in the second half. But it wasn't like, you know, their defense was locking down Northwestern.
And that is precisely why I am loving the Trojans, Alvin, in this spot. The over-under of 59.5, I'm steering clear of that one. I simply don't have as great of a feel altogether for this tilt. But USC was so much on the table. And the same applies, obviously, to Nebraska. But in terms of sheer explosiveness on offense as well. Look, I understand that all of a sudden Lincoln Riley's defense, stop me if you've heard this one before, is under the microscope, under scrutiny. Again, you had a week plus, though, to prepare post-Notre Dame, the fallout from that one. And I love the way, again, in which Maava is absolutely motoring this offense, spearheading this offense down the field. I think as long as you get off to a fast start and he's able to avoid the turnover issues that have plagued him admittedly in the last couple of games, Trojans are in a fine position here to be able to excel and be able to stay at just the 2 losses. So give me USC minus 4.5 over under, though. Thank you kindly. I will abstain.
I'm going to go on the under on that one.
Okay.
I think Nebraska at least makes it reasonable. So that way I think they cover. I think we're going to end it less because, I mean, it's less than 60 points. I mean, 59.5. Yeah, so, yeah, I like it.
Another offense in the Big Ten, meanwhile, which very well could not be reasonable as far as production is concerned this coming weekend. Alvin, we talked about it at the top of the program. When you drew up these schedules prior to 2025, you circled this particular weekend and you thought, all right, there are some enticing affairs to be found. One of them would have been, at that point in time, Penn State traveling to Columbus. And oh my, how that last month has progressed and gone for the people of Happy Valley. Penn State now in 3-4, 4 consecutive losses. We know all about the termination, obviously, of James Franklin a couple of weeks ago. Now, though, you have lost back-to-back games by 1 point apiece to Northwestern and Iowa, respectively. And you expect to go to the shoe against the number 1 team in the land, which is, mind you, favored by 19.5 right now, over-under of 45.5. And to me, Alvin, this stands out as the classic example of the grass, not talking about money. The grass isn't always greener for one Jim Knowles, highest paid assistant in all of college football. Returning now, however, to to Ohio State University. And this defense looks flat out overwhelmed. This offense is absolutely in a funk. I don't envision any sort of scenario in which Penn State, I know it's a rivalry game, I know that everything is on the table there, that actually these contests have been very, very tight in the last few years. This is not the same Nittany Lions program. We have to dig into it regardless, but you tell me how OSU doesn't absolutely roll over the Lions here.
I really can't. I can't. And, I think that, you look at Penn State right now, and everybody at Ohio State knows that like, this is a rivalry game. They'll be back. They're sucker punched right now. Okay, all this losing to Northwestern and all that. That's the wake of the firing and all that. Uh-huh. Okay, I mean, if James Franklin had still been the coach, I believe they win these last two games. Maybe not have looked all that sharp doing it, but I think this is just the funk coming off the firing and all that. Penn State will return, but it won't be this Saturday. Ohio State is going to but now we got to kick them when they're down. Now we need to put them like in their place while we can, because we're going to have to go there next year, and it might be the first game of the season or something, and they'll just be ready to whip us. Let's put them down today, and I think Ohio State will. I'm not sure how good Ohio State is either, because they haven't played anybody, and unfortunately, I have to say they're really not playing anybody this week either.
You're sure about that defense, though, aren't you?
Yes,
Unparalleled,
right? But they haven't blasted anybody where man, they just, except early in the season. But they'll cover. I think they win by 21 points. They win by 3 touchdowns over Penn State.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go, I'm not picking on the 45-5 only because Ohio State can score 45 points.
I agree with you. Yep.
So I'm like, I don't think that's going to happen, but it very easily could. But I don't want to play the over, because this is one of those nightmarish ones where, Penn State scores 3 points, and Ohio State scores 42, and I missed the over because the score was 42 to 3. I could see something like that happening too. So, yeah, I'm leaving that score alone, but I do think Ohio State covers. I do.
Yeah, I'm stepping away from that figure of 45.5, and yes, I understand that when you're talking about the last 8 contests here, the average margin of victory has only been 6.75 for one-score games. But I'm hard-pressed to really consider just how much of the late money, has actually moved in the direction a little bit of Penn State, because earlier in the week you were surpassing minus 21.5, minus 22. So the narrative qualities are there. You don't want to be kicked too much when you're down, but I keep going back to the bottom line. And the bottom line is that for this defense, now helmed by Matt Patricia, already 2 shutouts. Yes, admittedly against iffy competition.
Right.
2 shutouts, but you've allowed a total, Alvin, of 4 touchdowns over your first 7 games. And not since Florida State back in 1993 has a team permitted fewer than 41 points altogether over its first 7 contests. OSU is primed to lay waste to the Nittany Lions. And if I am Penn State, though, I think you found a little something in the previous game. And that was, namely, this is something that should have happened long before James Franklin was dismissed, long before Drew Aller suffered that season-ending injury at quarterback too. Get the ball, put it in the gut of your guys. You came into this season with lofty expectations, being able to have a balanced offense, but you were built, your bread and butter is all about the ground. And yet last week, Katron Allen, for the first time all season, received 20 carries. What do you know? 28 carries. He was the bell cow. He's now up to 5th in the conference in rushing. Where was this earlier in the season? We digress a little bit, but that's the formula. You can't do it here because it's all too predictable against this defense. But if you want to sniff respectability in some way the rest of the season, that's the play for PSU.
Well, absolutely. And I think you made a good point about Drew Allers. I think that 3 games into it, nobody wanted to say, okay, he could be great, but he's not being great right now. Let's get back to just rock 'em, sock 'em football. And the game they lost, and the Ohio State game. It's just kind of not the Ohio State game, but the game earlier they lost at home to, gosh, man, I'm
pick your poison. You can go UCLA on the road. You can talk about Oregon.
Yeah. The Oregon one, think about it maybe you should have, I think you came in there thinking it was going to be a shootout with Oregon, and basically you just needed to run the ball more, and if you kept it out of their hands more, you would have got out there with a win. You almost won anyway. So I think that was the philosophy. Maybe if they had picked that up a little bit earlier in the year. So at least if they rushed for 150 yards in the game, then they might cover. But I don't see them rushing for 100.
Not this time around. Take notice, Coach Kotonicki. Come on, take notice, Coach Kotonicki.
Yeah, that
anyway,
whole thing. He might end up back at KU next year because the offensive coordinator might not be there after 1 year.
You think Lance would take him back with open arms?
Yeah, unless Kotonicki was ready to try to get a head coaching job, or he could probably get hired as offensive coordinator, maybe at one of these places where the job is open.
True. If you're talking about head coaching gigs, though, I'm not sure if you're looking at something other than perhaps a group of 5 destination.
No, I'm talking about group of 5.
Okay, based on your body of work there.
Yeah, right. I was going to say, group of 5 team, but he could end up at depending on who gets these jobs. Of course, I wouldn't go nowhere near LSU because all that mess. Now, granted, Brian Kelly, you know how I feel about my man Brian Kelly. I hate to see anybody get the heave-ho. But when the governor's involved, ain't the governor got better things to do running the state of Louisiana and being all up involved in that?
Not at all.
Right, not at all. So, yeah, anyway, I digress. But Kotonicki, he can dial him still up. I think he's still a good offensive coordinator. I just don't think he got anything to work with. I think he's not. Now, maybe they weren't a good judge of talent as they thought they were.
Right.
And I guarantee you that if it was pro football and Missouri had called them and said, hey, you want to trade quarterbacks? They'd have said, yeah, send that guy back up here, man.
Can we have a mulligan?
Can
we have a do-over, please?
A do-over.
Please.
Yes.
Much more, by the way, on LSU next week in advance of LSU, Bama, some of the other SEC teams in action, unless the governor of the state of Louisiana has all of us here on lockdown as well. But we'll get into that. Speaking, though, of coaching changes aplenty, all you have to do, Alvin, is fixate and focus on that league in particular. We're talking about the SEC. We're talking about Florida, our next stop, as a matter of fact, on the College Football Connection. We still have 2 picks for you for week number 10 on 101 ESPN, that YouTube channel, and 101ESPN.com. This one, Alvin, is not being contested in the Swamp. Instead, neutral site-ish locale of Jacksonville. It is the world's, I think we can still say this, it's still branded as the world's largest outdoor cocktail party. Georgia at number 5, checking in at number 5 right now, favored by 7.5 against the Gators, sub 500, over-under number of 50.5, and Billy Gonzalez, not Billy Napier, is going to be the man in charge for this one. First time as the head coach or interim coach in this capacity right here, right now. I think it is interesting. A couple of different angles that you can take entering this contest. Yes, we know it has been an absolutely atrocious, putrid, abysmal offensive attack. The D has been pretty good, except when it has been overexposed and left to be out there on the field for ridiculously long stretches. DJ Lagway with the 9 picks. And yet this is a coach now in terms of Billy Gonzalez. It's his 3rd different stop in Gainesville. He is a true son, if you will, of the parts down there in the Swamp. He was with Urban Meyer on staff, won a national title or 2. He was there with Dan Mullen. When Billy Napier asked him to return in 2023, he followed in suit. And now he has his chance, at least for the next few games, to be able to do something as far as engineering a bit of a turnaround. We know what the MO here is here. You want to spread the ball out. You want to push it downfield. And if you're going to do so against Georgia, against this secondary, you know what? It's there for the taking. And it's there for the taking because, Alvin, this front 4, under Kirby Smart, it has been bewildering the rate at which this group has not been able to get after opposing quarterbacks, get into the backfield, get that penetration. So if Lagway has a little bit of time in this contest, and actually when I look at the over-under figure, I say, frankly, that the Gators and the Bulldogs definitely can push into the mid-50s. So I'm going over in that regard. This one just feels, based on hunch alone, we hear about it in pro sports, hockey specifically, all the time. Do you get that new head coach or interim tag bump, right? My gut tells me that the Gators get that in this spot. You had more of an opportunity to be able to prepare. You know what the weaknesses of this Georgia outfit, what those happen to be. It's not your father's Bulldogs team when it comes to the defense. We know that. The offensive proficiency has been there in recent weeks with Gunnar Stockton, but at minus 7.5, I'm very skeptical as to whether Georgia can run away from Florida in this atmosphere in Everbank Stadium. I think it's a game well into the fourth.
I do. I agree with you. I disagree with you. I think I'm going to still play that under on the 50.5. But I like Florida to cover. Because, like, once again, that's a touchdown and another scoring drive.
To cover.
I like Florida in that situation. It's a neutral site game. And I don't know if you've ever been to Jacksonville. It's closer to Georgia than
I'd like to. No.
It's right. But it's a neutral site game, and it's really something. Just real quick story. When I was a kid, and it was called the world's largest outdoor cocktail party, in my mind, I saw, cocktail party. I thought people were everybody got dressed and they had martinis and drinks and stuff like that. But except it was on a huge scale. Mm-hmm. And I guess it was when I got to college that I realized that it's just a big drunk fest. So not that I was crushed, but I really did think that they, for some reason, went out of their way to be fancy at this game.
Sophisticated gala and all.
Right, in Jacksonville.
No, we're just getting after it. We're pounding it. Hey,
True story.
I love it. I do find it interesting. Not only that Georgia has trailed at the half in 4 of its 5 SEC
and not looked good
to this point.
And not look good.
True.
Right.
It's also won 4 in a row in this series, 7 of the last overall in the series played in Jacksonville. But we both feel as if this one is going to mirror more of the result that we saw in 2019, the last time Florida actually prevailed in this series. It was a tight one. It was 24-17 because I go back to the defense. And there was some conversation as I drove into the station this morning here in Creve Coeur, nationally about, does Georgia have truly the bona fides to be able to get it done as a would-be national championship contender in 2025? And in spite of everything, in spite of the 12-team expanded version of the playoff, the fact that right now you are ranked number 5 in the nation, to me, Georgia right now isn't even necessarily punching in the same weight class as in Alabama, and it's because of the defense, because it has been so shockingly inept. Alvin, when we look at the third down conversion rate it's allowed to opponents in the 90s in the country, when you look at the number of sacks, 8 on the season, 127th. Oh, how about tackles for loss, just making things happen in the opposing backfield, 133rd. If Smart and company were able to remedy this, you would have seen it by now. And I think Florida further exposes a lot of those flaws this weekend.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. You just look at their games, and, Mississippi was a first down away from probably beating them, which they, put on Oklahoma. And I just, number 5 in the nation, and let's say they do get in. Now, there's one where I don't care what team I am. Hey, you got to play Georgia first. I was like, oh, okay, I'll take that. If I'm South Florida or I'm, one of those teams, I'm kind of like, oh, all right. Now, I'd probably be lower than that. South Florida probably have to take on somebody on, Alabama in Tuscaloosa or something.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, their defense is not scary. They have struggled to win some of these games and, quite frankly, just flat out should have lost. Georgia still got to play Georgia Tech, too. And I'm like, I know that it's the rivalry is an annual game, but man, they're probably thinking to themselves, like, man.
Well, how did last year go?
Yeah, right.
That narrow escape.
Yeah, exactly. So we got some tough games coming up here. So not that they're looking past Florida, but I think of their checklist of games, they're saying like, what could keep us out of the playoff? It'd be Georgia Tech whooping us. So I'm not saying they're looking past Florida, but I am saying that this game means a lot more to Florida than it does to Georgia right now.
That Haynes King is the real deal. And watch the Dogs go out this weekend and totally make mincemeat of the Gators down. Mind you, their top 2 receiving threats, or 2 of the top receiving threats as well. But on the flip side, I think we get to see just how legit Dallas Wilson is as the number 1 in training for DJ Lagway. Now, from a game in the SEC that at the beginning, the commencement of the campaign had much more associated with it, luster and hype-wise, to the Big Ten as we round it out here on the CFC. Illinois. Oh, Alvin. The CFP, expectations, the ambitions, CFP or bust for Brett Bielema in 2025, and it went bust in all the wrong ways last weekend in the Pacific Northwest. I told you before we actually picked that contest, a game from which Washington prevailed 42-25. I didn't get it. Illinois being an underdog on the road in that spot. We've seen Illinois respond to that challenge accordingly earlier in the season against Duke, for that matter. And what happened? Well, Altmaier went out, threw a rare pick. 2 of them, in fact. The running game still didn't get anything in the way of explosiveness. And your defense was shredded by a very capable dual-threat athlete on the other side. I have no idea what to expect from Illinois, albeit at home. Champaign, 11 a.m. kickoff at Memorial Stadium there in Illinois on Saturday morning. Rutgers is in the house, and Rutgers, despite being an underdog here, Alvin, minus 12.5 in favor of the Fighting Illini, over-under at 61.5. Rutgers is just that feisty team, that team that is going to be more than willing to embrace the idea of bashing you, knocking you in the mouth, in the face. And that wasn't exactly the prettiest victory a weekend ago against Purdue, but you pulled it out. You did so by 3 points on the road, and this team loves the smash mouth brand of football, which is ironic because that is precisely what Brett Bielema is lacking this year, and maybe this is another subject, but why Illinois is not going to find itself in the thick of things later in December going into January. Contrasting styles, believe it or not, in this case, and I am heartened a little bit, if I'm a fan of the Scarlet Knights here, by the fact that my team ranks in the top 6 in the entire country in average time of possession, holding that pigskin, Alvin, for more than 33 minutes per game. And you can most definitely exploit this Illinois defense. It isn't just the secondary. The front four obviously getting gouged too. You can get into that second level. This one has a chance to be much more competitive, I think, than a lot of people think.
I agree with you, and I know comparative scores in different weeks is tough, but it was 4 weeks apart. Ohio State went to Washington and shut them down, okay? And that was, I'm just thinking like Illinois could go up there and take that Big Ten brand of football and maybe not be as complete as Ohio State was, but I didn't see that coming.
No.
But now that I have seen that coming, that's why I'm going to take Rutgers into 12.5, because I just think that Rutgers can punch out enough first downs and keep Illinois' offense on the sideline long enough that just a lot of points don't get scored in this game.
Right.
And the problem last week was that Washington had 42 friggin' points. And, you know, Illinois coming in the low 20s, yeah, that's kind of maybe what I saw.
Yeah, and the way in which you started 2 of those road games, too, obviously Bloomington, that was well documented, but Washington, too. Duke, you started slowly, you pulled it out in the second half, but those ridiculously slow starts doomed Illinois at every turn on the road. Every turn.
Every turn. So I think Rutgers just comes in and just plays Rutgers football, and they've been in some games against some better teams in Illinois this year. Didn't win them, but 12.5, man. That one's just one of those, like, I just think that's too many points. That's no rhyme, no reason, other than Rutgers has shown that they're tough. Big Ten can hang. You know, like from that. When they first came in, it was like, man, Rutgers.
Yeah, just really? 1-4 in the conference, but hanging with everybody.
Hanging with everybody. So when they first came into the conference, they were like, man, we don't know if Rutgers will ever be able to just even stand up to this. And they've shown that they can, you know. And so I think they'll show that they are a Big Ten team, and it's November the 1st. And while it won't be freezing outside, I think Rutgers got to it doesn't matter if the wind's blowing or if it's cold or whatever. I think their brand of football is such. We ain't here to throw the ball around crazy anyway, so let's just line up and play. They covered at 12.5. I am going with the under too, 61.5. That's a lot of points, you know. I don't see Illinois lighting it up against Rutgers, and I definitely don't see Rutgers lighting it up against Illinois.
Yeah, that's what Illinois wants, to be able to play up the score, so to speak. But possessions are going to be at a premium in this one. And Rutgers, if this team has demonstrated anything, and when you look at the stretch run of the schedule, let's say that you're able to obtain this road triumph. You get to 5-4 at that point. Bowl eligibility, just one victory away, because you look at the rest of the schedule. You get Maryland at home. That defense has been lauded. It has been celebrated, and rightfully so. But you get the Terrapins at home before closing at Ohio State. And then, you're hosting Penn State. Who knows what the Lions will be like at this time.
And you're trying, like I say, you're trying to get to 6 wins. And so, you're saying, like, man, why not Illinois?
That's a success in this league.
Right, exactly.
Undeniably.
Right. So, like, wait a minute. Yeah. Okay, we went to a bowl game. We got wins over Illinois, Never mind Maryland, like you said, playing good football. Going to win 7-8 games.
Good.
Maryland this year. That's nothing to laugh at. So, yeah, I like Rutgers in that one. I just thought that line was too high. It's 12.5.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, now it's still 12.5. It was 13 to 14 range. Yeah.
Right. And by the way, this is an Illinois team that's coming home from getting their butts whooped to a Washington team. That's good. Don't get me wrong.
The travel arrangements, some of the ripple effects there.
But I'm like, I'm not sure that Illinois is really the team that can beat people by 12.5 points unless they're really bad. And Rutgers isn't really bad.
Mm-hmm. Could be a feast or famine situation, which is why I'm staying away from the minus 12.5 here. I just don't have a great anticipation for what that will present, but I'm with you on the under category as well. This one will be lucky, in my opinion, in my estimation, to get into the mid-50s. So that's how we will conclude the official picks for the College Football Connection. Week number 10, Alvin. Moving into November, obviously, you will start the month of November there in Lawrence. Obviously, KU in a spot in which it finds itself. It has to be able to pull off a victory because that is a daunting stretch to conclude the conference schedule as well. Besides the homecoming tilt, what else from the nation's slate is actually sticking out to you on this weekend that is not exactly being embraced by many?
Well, we've got the Iowa State is
Iowa State, Arizona State?
Yeah, because that's the one that's going to determine the hierarchy of Big 12.
5-3 versus 5-3.
Yeah, that. I was going to say that's the one that's going to okay, now when it all push comes to shove, where are we all going to end up? If we're not in the CFP, I want to go to the Holiday Bowl, or I want to do this one. I want the school to make some money, all that kind of thing.
You want the Music City Bowl this year? We'll give it to you.
Well, give it to you. Well, first of all, I'll take any bowl, right? But like I said, if we could beat Oklahoma State, then try to find one more win. Once again, I hope it's a driving distance. Laugh if we went back to the Liberty Bowl, that'd be fine with me.
Why not?
I don't care because I can drive there. Right. The investment in Phoenix last year wasn't bad. I don't know if I'm going to fly again at Christmas time. But you know how that is. I wasn't going to go last year until I was in Phoenix.
Speaking of the Liberty Bowl, though, Memphis trying to play for a little bit something more this year.
Memphis showed a little something. I didn't think that was going to happen. And they were losing. They were getting thumped. And Memphis just all of a sudden, let's score the last 17 points of the game, win the game. Easy peasy.
Always smash that over when it comes to the AAC. I learned my lesson.
Yeah. All right. I got one for you. I may have told you this in years past when we were doing the College Football Connection. Okay. MAC. If a good MAC team is playing on the road late in the season and they're favored by a big number, play them to win by a big number. Because there's something about it where no, we are not messing around. Right. They just come in there and they just beat the hell out of whoever they're supposed to beat by 12.5. They beat them by 25, 28 points.
Did you catch much of that action on Tuesday night?
Yes, I did. Right. And it's just oh man, they were so brilliant to do this. Now they won another conference is Wednesday night or something like that. Mm-hmm. But no, I said no, man, the MAC because the MAC sends a lot of kids to pros. So there's names that so-and-so went to Ohio.
You can make connections.
And so thus, now you're looking at these, this ain't really just nobody football out here. Mm-hmm. There's some kids out here that are going to play pro football. And it's, it's cold and whatever, and the budgets aren't large, but it's really entertaining. So anyway, that's my, yes. I get kicks out of those games as much as the big ones on the weekend.
Can't disagree with you.
Right, because you see great catches, you see great runs, you see great defense. It's football.
Speaking quickly, though, of colder conditions, they won't exactly have those this evening on the baseball side. You're a baseball guy. I wanted to get your quick thoughts on Halloween evening because the Rogers Center is going to be playing host to game number 6, Toronto, on the precipice, Alvin, of winning the World Series for the first time since 1993, knocking off the juggernaut that is the Los Angeles Dodgers. Credit that squad, 2 consecutive wins tonight. Gossman versus Yamamoto, the latter of whom has been invincible so far this postseason. Yeah. Kevin's been pretty good in his own right. Does this one get to November on the baseball side, or can Toronto lock it down tonight?
Well, I tell you what, Yamamoto is just, who am I to say that he doesn't throw 9 innings again?
Boy, it's fun to watch it.
Because the one thing that he has done, especially, like against Toronto, no St. Louis Cardinals, Toronto puts the ball in play. And they take, they create havoc on the bases by putting the ball in play. They get key hits. They've done everything that you need to do, including they lost an 18-inning game, but they scored 5 runs in that game. Now, they didn't score up to 7th inning. So if Yamamoto doesn't shut them down and they play Toronto baseball tonight, they could close it out. But I see this one going 7 because I just don't see the Dodgers losing the World Series until the Dodgers lose the World Series.
I'm with you there.
That's all I could say.
Yep.
And I would like Toronto to win, but I cannot favor Toronto tonight. I cannot favor Toronto in the 7th game.
Fundamentally speaking, Toronto at present doing such a better job of fundamentally executing in every conceivable aspect. You talk about putting pressure on the defense. Obviously, LA a little subpar in that department. The speed, being able to manufacture runs from top to bottom. By the same token, I keep waiting on Mookie Betts, even Freddie Freeman, post-game-winning home run, to be able to step up and help Ohtani in that order. It is a deep order, and yet credit Toronto's staff, credit Toronto's bullpen, too. Having said all that, I think you have an all-hands-on-deck situation tomorrow night, which means the local son, we can't say kid because he's pushing, he's past 40 at this point. Maybe, though, Max Scherzer plays a focal role in determining how this one shakes out. I can't wait for this series to be relevant along with the autumnal equinox, or the sports equinox, as they've called it earlier in the week. We didn't think we'd get into November sniffing baseball.
No, I did not, and I'll tell you what. I'll bet you the people in Toronto did not either.
Oh, they're
and
ready
now
for it,
they're
though.
coming back. Yeah, now they're coming back and said, like, you know what? That first game was amazing. And then when they beat us in game 2, we were probably thinking, like, God, I hope they can get back. Well, they're coming back with a 3-2 lead. So if Toronto can put some hits together early and at least get the Dodgers thinking, then it could be. But I don't think the Blue Jays will look up and the score is 0-0 in the 7th inning.
No.
Right. I think they said, like, oh, man. Ultimately, you start thinking, like, But now, the one thing about different than the 18-inning game is the Blue Jays get the last at bat. So if you can hang on in the top of an inning late and then push one across, you're a half inning closer to winning, and it's a big deal. So.
All bets could be off. We will have the action for you over on 101 ESPN this evening, Halloween night, just after 7 o'clock with the play-by-play on 101 ESPN. You, however, right now are tuned in. You're absorbing the college football connection. We're signing off for week number 10 with a little baseball bonus for you as well on 101 ESPN, the YouTube channel, and 101ESPN.com. Alvin, yours truly, will be back tomorrow morning as well, Alvin, on the mothership before Texas and Vanderbilt. Yeah, we've got that game as well on your home for college football in the Lou 101 ESPN. For Marty Jenkins, for Alvin Reid, safe travels to Lawrence, my friend.
Yeah, take my time.
My name is Bradford Bruns. Happy Halloween to everybody out there in the audience, and we'll catch you next week in the Lou. Take care, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the College Football Connection podcast on 101 ESPN.